When I'm recording this, there's 23 hours and 1 minute left till the end of council. I'm gonna take a look at Shiniri's votes and his Reddit post over here. And then also talk about mine. The stuff you see on the left, that's how I'm voting. I've explained the reasons a few times, but I'll give a quick summary at the end, after reviewing Shiniri's. But let's just start from here. So Shiniri has +1 power to Moshcraft. It's right now it's 7 provisions, 5 tempo. It will be 6 tempo. There's nothing wrong with that. Milena +1 power. I like this change. This was in one of my previous councils. Frigate +1 power. I don't like it when engines, especially engines that have armor, get a power buff. Now you need 6 power to remove 6 damage to remove this. That being said, like it will trade evenly with Spear and Parasite, so it's probably okay. The thing I don't like is that like Toad and Offering and those things can't kill it anymore. Like there's a lot of stuff in the game that are at 4 power and then they either have shield or armor, and in general, I'm not in favor of buffing them further because there's no destroy 5s in the game. Like an enrage Ifrit won't kill this. You know, it's, I don't know. Well, without other constructs being played, that is. Madame -1 power, fine. This is targeted at Jackpot, but it's gonna affect everybody. And the thing is, in Jackpot, this already goes to 8. So this won't do anything to Jackpot. Sounds like Reddit's trying to do a thing and vote as a block. Well, thanks for reaching out, guys. Hey, let's not get the #1 streamer by hours at least on board. Hours watched, I mean. Like to me, this is misguided. Jackpot's the issue. Nerf Jackpot. Is there a non-Jackpot deck that's like strong right now for Syndicate? Not to my knowledge. There's only one tier 1 Syndicate deck, and it's Madame with Jackpot and Captain Yago. And -1 provision isn't gonna do anything to that deck. It really isn't. It already ate like a bunch of other provision nerfs. Like it just isn't. Like, why nerf a gold when it's only OP with one leader? That play and pass is crazy, but that play and pass is only crazy in Jackpot because Madame boosts herself, and so she can't be removed. Like in Jackpot, Peaches go to 5, and then Slice Seductress. The second you play a card goes to 5. Madame goes to 8. On, you know, if they were blue coin, or goes to 5 the second you play a card because they go to max coins and then Jackpot boosts the thing. This is not the case in any other leader. In any other leader, you can just take 2 turns to kill this stuff, and it's okay. I think it's okay for a 14 provision card to take 2 turns to answer. I know, Rosh, but like, you know what I mean? Like, be smart. So I'm gonna say I disagree with this. Plus, it puts it in coup range, which there's no reason for that. Coup or Amnesty or whatever, like, there's no reason to buff those. Because they're only in like one matchup, and anytime something is like really strong in one matchup, that's just gonna be a bad time. Either like you as the NG player will miss it and feel terrible, or the SY player will run into you and you happen to have Amnesty in hand and they'll feel like it will always just feel terrible when it happens.
Just followed.
It's a lose-lose type of situation. Abunat, thank you for the follow. So provisions here. King Demovan +1 provision. Yeah, I mean, fine. But again, this is only a problem in Inspired Zeal, right? Yet another situation when a leader is the culprit and not the card. Because like now, like this is, we're just making sure this will never ever be played in Shield Wall or Stockpile by doing it this way, right? The problem is when they play it and it generates value the same turn. Like they play it and they use it to play mutagen. And now, like, do you answer the mutagen or do you answer the Demovan? Do you answer the Rafarge or do you answer the Demovan? Right? Do you answer the Selkirk or the like? This is the problem, and why I think nerfing these like, oh, this card is very strong right now. Yes, but is it strong with every leader? No. If you nerf it because it's strong with Inspired Zeal, will it make it unplayable in the other leaders? Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Inspired Zeal is the problem. Treyhan's bullshit? No, it's not. Nerf Treyhan. There's no good reason for Treyhan to exist. Treyhan, Idoran, look, they're not a high priority for me, but I have no problem with them getting nerfed. Rent-free, again, if... Is it the rent-free itself that's overpowered? Or is it having tempo and point slam and they can, like... I will. The Madame Nerf is dumb. It's a 14p card. The people who seem to be complaining about it are people who fit in heart. We're not even at red coin with stratagem is used on her. It should be like that. No. The play that happens. This guy 1 2 3 1 3 3 4 2 4 3 4 3 5 3 5 3. The way that Madame is used is it's used with a coin stratagem. So they click the coin stratagem. They decree or play Madame directly, and it profits 4, so they go to 9, which means when they get and it's a tribute 8, and King of Beggars comes out, and like and it puts like three threats on the board. It's 3 engines on the board plus 2 thinning, and then Novigrad or Flying Medina also comes out, which is another thinning. So in one turn, they have thinned 3 cards and put 3 engines on the board. That's way too good, right? So I would have less of a problem with Madame being 15 provisions than this. Madame is 15? No, she's not. Madame is 14 right now. There are no 15 provision cards in the game right now. Madame is 14. What do you mean? Oh, right, because you gotta put... But Seductress is a 5p card on its own. No. Like, Madame is not 15 provisions. Okay? Like... I'm sorry, it just isn't. That's like saying Lilith's Omen is 29 provisions because you got to put a Mamuna and a you know, whatever, the Relic Lady, Gerdikora in your deck. No, it's not. It's different when you're talking Renfri's gang. Like, you would never ever like play Renfri's gang without the other Renfri's gang. Like, they're required. And like, they are considered bricks by themselves. Peaches are not considered bricks by themselves. They're a perfectly fine card that gets played. It's not like Roach or Knickers. It's not like it's pulling out Roach and Knickers. As an Nemesis, yeah. The other archetypes where Madame doesn't get boosted, it's fine. Now, I think Madame is stronger than Scenarios because it's all in one turn. So I have no problem with her going to 15 provisions. And I would happily pay for it. Right? In my decks. But I don't like a card being like this gets a lot of value unless opponent has amnesty, and then it gets like backfires hard or what or cool. Like I just don't like making a card just really bad into one specific matchup. Highland Warlord +1 provision. Okay, I'm fine with this. Maybe it will. The thing is, this will just mean that like the deck will just cut Fukusia and play a second Freya's, and it will still be fine, and they'll still play the Highland Warlords. The problem with this card is more fundamental. Right, we were talking about Renfri. So the thing is, I'm not saying this is 100% wrong, but I don't think Renfri is played because of the leader ability. I think it's played because if you're playing a bunch of units, it really makes sense to play Renfri's gang. And like Renfri's just taking the place of Oniromancy. So Renfri's gang takes the place of like Decree or ADC or something. And it's just a different style of deck building. Renfri only shows you 3 options, so without Rune Mage, like, you know, it's not reliable enough to be, in my opinion, overpowered. And if you gotta play Rune Mage and Renfri's gang, then like that's a lot of stuff your opponent has to use against you. I would be fine with a Renfri power nerf. I just think a provision nerf is silly. Because all you're doing is nerfing all the decks that would want to play Renfri by 1 provision. And the thing is, of all those decks, only a couple are actually competitive, right? What Renfri decks get played right now? There's Kashi, but that's only because Kashi is a binary card that either gets no value or 1 billion points, depending on whether or not you can play another card the same turn that you play it, right? So, like, if you can... You either play with Scenario or you play with Renfri. And you always play with Force of Nature Leader, because if Kashi doesn't get Thrive the turn that it's played, it literally is a 4 for 10, which is dog shit. So that's why Renfri is played with Kashi. That's the only reason. And if you nerf Renfri, it will just be played with Scenario with the same exact mechanic, right? Where you just play Kashi on the 2nd chapter so that it procs the Thrive and immediately play another card from your deck. Ta-da. It doesn't matter. Like, nothing will change this. So I don't think you should count that like as a Renfri deck. The only competitive Renfri decks are Precision Strike, because it has a boatload of thinning, and because ST has lots of good mid-range cards like Chariot, like Zoltan, like Great Oak, which got buffed by the Council. Like, that's who plays Renfri. It's Renfri Precision Strike and Nilfgaard Soldiers. That's it. That's literally it. Nilfgaard Soldiers used to be Imperial Formation with like 2 or 3 Tall Punish and 1 million locks. Nowadays, what's more like fashionable, not because the other version's any worse, but just this just happens to be more popular right now because of how tempo heavy the meta has gotten, is playing Musicians of Blaviken, Double Blightmakers, Renfri's gang, and trying to win on even with tempo. The Renfri leader itself isn't doing jack shit. It's Imperial Formation being 16-point leader that you can jam in round 1 and still later have a substitute leader ability from Renfri. It's not like her abilities are that strong on their own. It's just that when you have a leader that can let you win on even guaranteed round 1 and have 16 points of reach, you will red coin abuse people. And when you have a faction like Nilfgaard that has really high tempo cards like Soldiers and Marine with Slave Driver or Light Cat with Slave Driver or Blightmakers, you know, and none of them, like a bunch of just bronze cards that play for a lot of tempo, that's just what's going to happen. And so Renfri just naturally fits into that archetype. It's not that Renfri is OP, it's that like there is like 1 or 2 archetypes in the game that have a playstyle that fits well with Renfri. So like nerfing a neutral card because it's good with two archetypes out of like 26 is silly to me. It's just fundamentally misunderstanding cause and effect. But I wouldn't expect any more from, you know, people. Okay, Reigns -1 provision. Fine. It's not strong enough to be played at 12, at 11. Maybe it will get played. It's still kind of a binary answer or lose card, right? With some deck interaction conditions that, like, opponent again doesn't have a lot of counterplay. Like, I'm not a fan of a card like Reigns getting buffed simply because, like, I'm never a fan of anything without counterplay getting buffed. You see me advocating for a buff to Kashi? Right? Like, Akashi has, like, macro counterplay. But, like, what am I supposed to do if I'm against a Reigns deck? Not let him play more Van Voorhis? Not let him thin? How? Unless you're Clog, you or Mill, you have zero counterplay to this. And saying the counterplay to this is be one of, like, 2 out of 26 archetypes is not good. Same with Vesemir Mentor. What's the counterplay to this? Don't let opponent hand buff stuff? There is some counterplay because he also buffs all the Witchers on the board. But I also don't like the counterplay to a play style being kill everything they play. Kill all the Witchers soon. Like, okay, you know, that's a lot more accessible than Clog as counterplay, so this is not as problematic as this. But I also just don't see, like, this obsession with buffing these, like, point slammy, boring Witchers. Like, there's no multicolored interaction here that's interesting. It's just like, play this and everything gets buffed by 1. Great. Like, what belonged here was Inspired Zeal. Sorry, what belonged here was Inspired Zeal, right? What belongs here are interesting cards that will enable new playstyles. Not adding, like, 1 more provision to an already mid-range deck that can fit in any random number of things because it plays a ton of neutrals. Selective Mutation, yes, good card, right? Or good buff, because it's a hand fix card, which I always like hand fix, because if somebody wants to pay some, as long as it's not a 4P hand fix, right? If somebody wants to, I mean, there's Strays of Spala, but that's very restricted. If somebody wants to pay some extra provisions to be able to hand fix themselves, fine. But, you know, it was playing for 4 tempo, which was very low. Like, Triss Butterflies plays for 4 tempo, and that's a 9 provision card. But that also buffs the thing by 3. This doesn't do that. So, yeah, I think it's fine. And it's only for Adrenaline cards. What is this going to get played for? Not Yerden. It's going to be played for, like, Vesemir Mentor, or the Thinning Witchers, or maybe Gatan, or Cat Witcher, or Cat Witcher Mentor. Well, let's find out. What hole has Adrenaline? It might be played in Pinsir for Erland. I don't know. Probably not. You wouldn't play it if you only have 1 card. It would be played for Keldar for sure. Keldar makes sense. Keldar or Quen, because Quen into Professional or Quen into the 3 Witchers. Like, it's just gonna buff Triss Meteor Shower, honestly. Could be played for Brehen. Could be played for Gellert too, because Gellert round 1 with Mutants is a lot of potential. Prophet has Adrenaline. I bet nobody thought about that when they suggested buffing this, but it's technically a buff to Prophet. These guys for sure. This might, and of course Colgrim and Letho. No, Letho doesn't have Adrenaline. Only Colgrim does. But Quen does, so you can Selective Mutation to grab a Quen and use Quen to play Letho. So it's also a buff to Madoc, just to be clear. This is a buff to Madoc. Before nerfing, we should buff Cash? No, before nerfing Madame, we should nerf Jackpot. Jackpot is disgustingly good. Just because y'all don't see it, because it's only played at like 2,500 and higher, doesn't mean... Also, Jackpot is a brain-dead deck. It synchrovents a core mechanic of a faction. Jackpot and Inspired Zeal and Fruits of Yizkith should all be like 12 or 13 provisions. That's it. Like they should not be 15. It's insane that they've gotten this many buffs. Okay, there's a second image. Why is there a second image? So Shin is suggesting more than 12 changes again. What card provides dumb gameplay? Rent-free Beasts also exists and is... okay, yeah. Coral, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot about Rent-free Beasts. But to me, again, the problem there is Flaminica. Like, you want to nerf that deck? Nerf Flaminica. Then you only nerf that deck. Like, why don't we do targeted nerfs? Everybody said Syndicate was weak, so they buffed the leader that didn't need it. Yep. No, the reason Jackpot got buffed is because it was seeing literally no play. And some people don't understand that not everything needs to see play. Like, something should just be the beginner leader and just let it go. Like, not all diversity is good. Not every round table needs the fascist to represent that point of view. You know what I mean? Like, something should just be left in the corner, in the shadows, and not touched. Like, it's fine. Okay, so... This is what Shinmiri votes, and then these are his other... Oh, he expects alumni to get power increases. Shawnee, which executioner... Because he expects all of the Russian votes to go through. And he expects Hofrusinger to go through. It's not going to go through, man. Maybe. Did Metallic Danny put it in there? Then it might. I mean, I say it's not. Like, I'm voting 3 stars. I hope all of you are also, and I hope that makes it go through, but... Provision increase Mahakam Forge? No! What the fuck? It already has like 16 provisions. People will just play mid-range. Like, stop buffing leaders to too many provisions. You're not buffing an archetype by buffing a leader. Buff the cards. Buff the cards that suck, that make that archetype not be played. He's expecting a provision increase to Slave Driver? Who's pushing for this? He's expecting a raiding fleet provision decrease. Oh, yeah, one of the Russians I saw. Botchling, Mink. Yeah, hand buff, Jackpot, like Symbiosis, you know, basic Thrive or basic Death Wish. Honestly, Onslaught. Mahakam Forge, Harmony, or Call of Harmony. Honestly, like, most ST leaders are just beginner leaders. I don't know. It's just... Okay. 5 out of 6 my best are cards from the buff coordination tool. Can I vote in this? It's too late. Hofrusinger got it. Oh, okay. That's cool. These are all cool. I support everything you see here except Morkvark power increase. I don't like giving more tempo to consistency cards. Like, there should be a trade-off. You either get consistency or tempo, right? Which, while I'm playing Wellhound Riders in all my decks, I did not want that buff, and I wouldn't mind if that got reverted. So these are all the buffs. What are the nerfs? Is he not doing the nerfs? I hope these go through. These are all good changes. And these two are good changes. But it's not like a terrible change either. And what was beginner faction? Well, they're wrong. There should not be a beginner faction. 1/6 of your game should not be... Like, every faction should have playable decks at different skill levels. No, a lot of people say that, Leon, for whatever reason. Oh, Lord. It's like a 10-step process. Why should it be stuff that's not already buffed in previous councils? Okay. So let me just finish reading Shinmiri's post. With Vesper Meta as the card that I think is the best way to buff the various Switcher archetype decks, but it didn't get it enough votes in the balance construct. I think most of the cards that made it through have good reasoning and thought behind them, as many of them are cards I have tried to vote buff in the past. But there's only 2 cards I really think are needed. Those are Madame and Demavant. Both 3-star votes for me. The Russians are voting through a lot of buffs for NR and Syndicate, and these 2 cards are already very prominent in the meta, getting buffs to some of their decks that... Okay. This is good reasoning, but it's like, it's short term, and he just doesn't want to have his shit next season. I get it. Like, basically, 2 Syndicate, like, off the books and Hidden Cash are both getting provision buffs by the Russians, and he's like, well, that will mean Madame is OP, and I think... I still think Celerity is better at 15p than 3 power. Yeah, why is this mid-range leader getting buffed anyways? I completely agree with Shin here. Like, there's no reason for OTV to get a buff, but it is. So he's saying, let's nerf Madame to counter that, but I'd rather just nerf OTV and Jackpot. It sucks because I'm gonna have to use my buff slots for fucking leader nerfs. It's awful. Yeah, Demavant is also really good for alumni, that's true. It's getting overbuffed, I agree. Like, Shin is an alumni enjoyer. He loves playing alumni. It's his kind of deck. Bless, ask me again after we're done with this. I'll explain. Just at me when we're done with this, and I'll give you my reasoning. This is all obvious. I agree with. Other than these 2, I'm not super concerned nerfing anything else. Nerfing Itaran. Yeah, there's some cheesy things, and then Treherne. Sure, Renfried's a bit too high play rate right now, probably partially because of all the cheap 4P thinning tools, disproportionately helping Renfried decks. Yes, absolutely. And Highland Warlords because I think the card provides too much carryover in the form of extra removal power. That's also probably true. Also a necessary nerf to encourage future buffs to Ulula and other types. People keep saying Ulula. Ulula is, like, never going to be good. Okay? Like, unless you make her unkillable by making her 7 power, like Rosa, this will never be good. Why? Because it's an obvious removal target in a deck that plays no other removal targets other than Tyr. I will 100% be locking this every single time I see it. She's fun. Fun for you. Fun for me when I'm playing it and it doesn't get answered. I play Brockvar Warrior for 12 fucking points and board wipe the opponent with a 4P bronze, but doesn't mean it doesn't make it a good card or a good decision to buff it. Look, if you take one thing away from all of my rants about balance, is that I want everyone to consider empathy for their opponent, for the recipient of a card when thinking about a card being buffed. Like, how does somebody counter Hafrusinger? Well, they can kill it with 5 damage, they can lock it, they can fill the row, or they can stop the other cards that have to exist and heal or damage for this to work. So there's like 6 different ways, which means every deck will have some ability to counteract this or just outpoint it. Like, it's fine to buff a card like this because like you can come at it in 6 different ways, and it's fair for that reason. It's fine to buff this because like it's not that many points, and there's a big cost to having 2 5P cards in your deck that aren't doing anything else for Syndicate. It's fine to buff this because like it's such low tempo that making it 5 tempo isn't worse, and like skirms cost 5 provisions. So if opponent has skirms, that's like or a Moshcraft, there's a cost to having that in their deck, right? It's fine to buff this because this is like way worse than Knickers, and 8 provisions would make it somewhat but it works in different ways, right? And it has downsides, like it goes tall, and that you have to have it in your hand and it only draws the top card, right? It's fine to buff this also because, you know, like by itself, it's a 5 for 7. It has to get discarded or pulled out of deck with Darren or with Compass or Lippy or something. It has to, you know, like just think about what your opponent can do against a card or against the leader. If I can't do anything against your Ensayas because you just jam it, give it Zeal, or play Demovan and give it Zeal and play card, or play Rafards and do the same thing, and now you have, like, that's not fun to play against. I focus on nerfing things that are not fun to play against, like carryover abuse or shuffle abuse, and buffing things that aren't unfun to play against. That's it. Do I think Professor could use a buff? I think for Professor to see more play, yes, it would need to get a provision buff.
Machina _ It's fine to buff these.
Thank you, Dave. I agree. It's fine to buff. It's fine. It's fine to buff these because yours certainly do need a buff. Thank you for the sub, man. 9 months. Is it a boy or a girl? I'm sorry, Derp. I will stop ranting. Derp doesn't like it when I rant. This is just like, what's the counterplay to this? Don't have a card that has 4 power or less? Like, you know what I mean? It's not a priority. And it gets, and you can't, like, removing it doesn't do much after the fact. So, you know, that's why cards like that aren't a priority to me. I thought this got over-nerfed. I thought it was barely worth it at 11 provisions. Yeah, shocking, I know. I thought, you know, there were better, like, nerfing Calvi was good. Nerfing this was not. Nerfing Enslaved Leader, I'm okay with it now. At the time, I didn't feel like it was a priority. But anyway, like the reason I'm not trying to get people to buff this is because what's the counterplay to this? Kill every assimilate engine that you wanted to kill anyway if you could? Right? Like, it happens on deploy. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's just kind of silly. Like, I don't know. Hubert seems too cheap. Hubert's a perk. Like, faction-specific consistency cards that have some conditions should have perks. Call the Forest. It's Royal Decree, but only for ST units, and it gives you a +1. That's cool, right? Volve, like, only plays nature cards, or Meadow, only tactics. Like, and like Hubert coming out from orders, like, that's cool because you control it. It's like Ceres Fearless, right? But Ceres is like way stronger. Right now, this is better than Knickers. But Knickers can come out, like, it's just different enough that it's like not obvious that you should always include this over Knickers. Like, I like cards like this. The vampire tag is very, like, annoying because he's not a soldier, but it's fine. 5 power is too much? I don't think so. Like, because he can also be a brick, right? Like, because the faction plays, NR has a lot of things that draw cards. So, and like, your opponent can keep track of how many times, like, I know most people don't, but it's easy to keep track of the 10 counter. Yeah, it's like Aileron. Right? Where is it? Where's Aileron? I gotta switch to ST. It's an archetype-specific thinning tool with some unique conditions that a player has complete agency over. I really like that. Yeah, right, Eudora. Like, it's in the same category as all of those, which is why Imlerith belongs at 8 provisions. Right? Imlerith should be the same cost as Aileron and Eudora and Hubert. Why is this 9? Why is this 9? This might not even get played at 8, honestly. I will play it. It will take a while for people to figure out clever ways to use this. But there's no reason for this to be 9. And there's no reason for Naglfar to be 9 either. Like, why is Isengrim's Council 8 and this is 9? Can anybody explain to me how Isengrim's Council is worse than Naglfar? It isn't. And Isengrim doesn't punish you for having golds in your deck. So that's my thought on that. If you want to know some of the cool things I think you can do with this, like, you can use it to eat a griffin without playing Fruits Leader. And enable your Mamuna, right? You can use it to eat an Egern, right? Or Morvad, so you can Ozra it without giving your opponent a Yenvo or a Heatwave. Sure, they could Squirrel, but that's good. There's counterplay. And also it goes tall. But also, it goes tall, which is good if you want to proc Thrive. It has, you can do cool things with Necromancer's Tome deck, right? So let's say you have an Incubus you want to play, but you have, like, you don't have an Incubus in the graveyard, and you only have one Incubus target out anyway. You can eat an Incubus with this, and then now it's in the graveyard. Or, you know, or like with Death Wish, same thing. You could eat a Toad with this. Any number of things. It adds 3 points to a card and 1 thinning. Like, 3 points and 1 thinning is not different from Knickers, and Knickers is fine at 8, and this should be 8 also. Like, I don't see how anybody can argue with this. To me, this is a no-brainer, and everybody should vote for this. Hofresinger is also a very cool card. I'll start making some decks that showcase Hofresinger. It just, like, it has anti-synergy with Svalblood, which is a good thing because, like, we want to encourage different kinds of Self-Food that just play Svalblood. And Svalblood and Care Troll, by the way, still need nerfs, but we're kind of stuck in this pattern where we're at the mercy of the larger population of coordinated Russian votes. So I'm picking, like, single target cards that will let me build a lot of new decks or play existing decks in a different way. So that's where my focus is, and I think Hofresinger and Imlerith are really good ways to do that. I think Nausicaa Slave Driver are just the most boring cards ever, and they're in every deck whenever they're at this power, and they're still perfectly fine with -1 power. Just do it. And Dame, I don't see how anybody can argue that this should not be 6 provisions. In a 4-card round, it's placed for 20 points easy. Just put it at 6. And don't nerf anything else in Ball. Don't nerf Rosa and fucking Philippe again. Like, does Battle Station need a nerf? Does it deserve a nerf? Yes. Is it a priority? I don't think so. It has a cost, and the decks that play it aren't too oppressive right now. I have a bigger problem with Sergeant themselves. Like, nerfing Sergeant and Slave Driver is a huge nerf to every deck that plays Battle Station anyway. Not a huge nerf, but, like, a lot of times Battle Stations is used round 1, smork out, like, Slave Driver and an engine in the same turn. And so nerfing Slave Driver at 1 power is a slight indirect nerf to Battle Station. Anyway, these are my votes, and how most of my chat is voting the exact same way. If you don't want your votes to be wasted, please vote like the same priorities and everything. We spent a lot of time debating, discussing, etc. Reverse Sergeants, you're wasting votes? Not really. Suggest a better power decrease here. And also, 1 month without Sergeant spam is a month well lived. There's value in this. Even if it got reverted, which I don't, you know. The thing is, here's my warning. If this gets reverted again, I'm making it 7 provisions. Then you can't play it. Nerf Iteran? Making Iteran 5 power does nothing. Does absolutely nothing. If you kill Iteran against Reavers, they're happy because you gave them a spot. And there's no other deck that plays Iteran. So it doesn't matter. It's literally a throwaway vote for him. And that's the only reason he has it in there. It won't have any impact. Like, I don't have a problem with Iteran to 5. Right? But it won't have an impact. This will have an impact. There's a lot of brain dead NG decks. Maddox spam is like everywhere. Right? And Maddox spam only works because of this. Without this, they wouldn't have any proactive points. Yeah, and Spellweavers aren't like oppressive or anything. They're not. You answer a few Spellweavers, you win. Like, it's not a problem. Like, if I was using my votes in a different category for these, you could maybe be like, stop going back and forth. But I'm not. This is literally the worst category there is. Right? Like, power decreases. They don't have the biggest impact. And a lot of my votes are also for like fixing issues with cards like Casino Bouncers and Scald and Morkvarg that had to get nerfed because of misguided buffs previously. And I'm following through on my pledge that said if Casino Bouncers go back to 5 provisions, I will use the slot on buffing them. You're really wasting buff slot to inspire Zeal just for Nilfgaard to reverse it next month again? I don't think so. I think Nilfgaard probably realizes he made a mistake. Like, Inspired Zeal is everywhere, and it's way too strong. And this card makes every card like Demovan and Refards and Revenants, makes all of those cards problematic. All of those cards would be fine if they didn't have Zeal. Even Radovid Judgment would be fine if it didn't have Zeal. Like, people literally playing Radovid and then instantly giving it Zeal. Like, they're literally wasting a charge on Radovid to click on it because they can. Okay? No other NR deck does this nonsense. Only Inspired Zeal is a problem. And as long as the Inspired Zeal is there, I think Nilfgaard buffed this for alumni's sake. But do we see alumni this season? No. This needs to go back to 14. Also, they're making AA 12 provisions. Come on, guys. And, Halney, if you have a better suggestion for a provision buff, I'd like to hear it. But I think this is literally the most urgent change we can make in this, like, 3-star category. It's a huge problem. There's no counterplay against this deck. This is one of the stupidest decks to play against. Either you kill everything and lock everything, or you lose to it. Like, if you can't lock everything and bleed everything out, you lose to it. You would change Imlerith for Naglfar? First of all, Naglfar sees a lot more play than Imlerith. Imlerith deserves it more. Imlerith is on the same tier, should be on the same tier as Eudora, as Knickers, as Aileron, as Hubert. There's no reason for this to be 9, unless you just hate monsters. Second of all, Naglfar sees lots of play because Gales can tutor it, right? And it's a lot less interesting than Imlerith. Naglfar will still only get played in decks that have, first of all, Naglfar can't be played in Renfree decks, right? Naglfar won't be played in any Necromancer's Tome decks because you don't want your Golden Necker to play Naglfar. You want to play bronzes. So Naglfar is bad for that reason too. Naglfar penalizes you for having golds in your deck. Like, you can't play Parasite, you can't play Queen of the Night. So, like, even if you buff Naglfar, it's still only going to be played in Frost and maybe Ogoroids. And that's it. And those decks already play Naglfar if they want to. So what are you accomplishing? What's the impact? Other than, I just want to be contrarian. By nerfing Buff Sergeant, you're literally destroying NG's endgame capability compared to... Are you serious right now? First of all, a 1-power nerf to Sergeant means that when you play 6 sergeants, you're losing 3 points out of 51. Holy shit. Instead of 51 points, you have 48 points from playing 6 sergeants. Oh my god, that's like a 6% power decrease. Wow, I am literally destroying NG's endgame. NG's endgame should not be spamming the same fucking bronze over and over again. Unconditional fucking 10 card with 2 armor and assimilate proc? Are you serious? I'm also the same guy who buffed Lydia, made it 8 provisions, right? I proposed buffing Swears. I had Diviner to +1 power. I'm by no means an NG hater. NG is my second most played faction, and I play lots of NG. And Nilfgaard does not need sergeants. Like, sergeants should be only played in soldiers, and or like with machines that benefit from the tactic. And like the counterplay, think about it. The counterplay to a sergeant is what? If you play sergeant and I want to stop you from copying it, what's my counterplay? How do I stop you from doing that? I have to kill a 10 power unit with 2 armor. How do I do that? COC, Key Wave. That's it. Or like a Geralt. Why do I need to use a 10 or 9 provision card to counter a 6 provision card? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. The other thing is, a nerf to this is a buff to everything else, right? You have to understand, cards don't exist in a vacuum, okay? Why would anyone ever play Peter? Peter's a very good card. He's a 6 provision reset. Nobody else has this in like a Renfree deck, right? This kills the locked unit. Very good card. This, assimilate +2. This is the same provision cost as a gnome. I promise you, if Scoia'tael had a sergeant, you'd never see gnome get played in Harmony. You would never see gnome get played in Harmony. The people would just play sergeant instead. Why play a card that will be 10 points in 3 turns when you can play a card that's 10 points now? It's silly. Why bother with Shelmar? Why bother with Sergeant or Spotter, right? Which is a card that like requires a combo. Why bother with this when it has an adrenaline condition? Why bother with Blightmaker even? It can brick. Why do any of those cards when you could just play this? Why bother with Vrygef? Why, like, you see? The existence of this makes the game stupid and boring and becomes an obvious choice when what is it? The Sid Meier quote or whatever? You have to protect players from themselves. Do not give them a path of least resistance that's clearly superior to every other option. If you give them an obviously superior option, players will always pick that to the detriment of gameplay and everything else. Because players like to win and do so in the most efficient way possible. So no, we're not nerfing NG's endgame. Holy shit. I've been climbing with Nilfgaard today. How many sergeants do you see me play? How many sergeants does Masquerade Ball play? 89% will take the easy and obvious choice even if it's boring. Yeah. And what? Like they play a sapper. I have to kill the sapper immediately for 2 tempo. Otherwise, they'll slave driver and snowball the game out like crazy. And they can play one from Garrison. They can play one from or what about the illusionist spam? Is that fun to play against? Why does that work? Well, because they slave driver every fucking illusionist, and then they teleport the illusionists. Is that fun for anyone? Come on, man. Don't say nonsense like this. You're gonna search my other factions in game points. What faction? What faction has a 10 for 6? Show me. Show me what card in Monsters the Point Slam faction rivals Sergeant. This is conditional. I have to have 2 other units, both at 10 power, before this will be less than a Sergeant, because it doesn't have armor and doesn't proc assimilate. Hey, Split Cane, thank you so much for the 20 months. Really appreciate it, man.
Split Cane.
You're a legend. ST or Monsters? Okay, this is Monsters. Is it better than... is Gale better than Sergeant? Is Barbagazi? Is Self-Eater? Is Andrega Queen? Is Queen of the Night? This is a gold. This is a gold that takes 3 turns to do its damage, and it's 9 tempo. Okay? This is 6. This is 7 on the turn that is played. And it requires a leader charge. What are you talking about? Like, these 2 cards are on the same tier as Dame, except Dame is 5 provisions. Okay, let's go look at scoia'tael. Let's look at the 6 provision cards in scoia'tael. My god, this is the same as Glynis. This is 5 plus 1 a turn. This is hand buff nonsense. This is 4 plus 1 a turn. This is basically a lacerate. This gives you a less than 6 provision bronze plus 2 points. What ST 6 provision card is point slamming like Sergeant is? The fact that you said monsters and ST tells me that you don't really know the game very well, because the proper comparison is Skellige. The Skellige has Greatsword, but guess what? Greatsword comes down, takes 6 damage, and has to get healed back up again. This requires rain, right? This requires a damaged unit to rival it. This is a Sergeant without the armor that destroys itself if it takes 5 damage. This takes 7 damage if it's the tallest unit. Like, what do you mean, man? This is 8. Like, ooh, what? Where are these 6 provision cards that are better than Sergeant? This requires 5 tokens on that row. And it's so bad that even Swarm barely plays it. Let's look at NR. This is the only card that rivals Sergeant, and this requires setup and synergy with other cards. And this was released at 4 provisions, and I'm one of the main reasons it got nerfed to 6. This takes like 4 turns to have the same number of points as Sergeant? What 6 provision cards? Endgame point slam. Okay. Ooh. If you're Nilfgaard and you're losing to endgame point slam, may I suggest that you invest in, I don't know, a tall punish? Let's see, how many tall punish does Nilfgaard have? Let's go ahead and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could say this is 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, there's more. Hold on, there's more. 12, 13. No, there's more. There's more. Hold on. This kind of counts, right? 15. No, wait, there's more. Where's Peter? Where's Peter? 17 fucking top. Sorry, 18. Vanhamar is 18. And then, of course, you have bronze poisons. What are you talking about? I'm adding all the tall punish that Nilfgaard has that nobody else has. That's not even counting the neutrals in the game that you have access to. Just... Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot Bouclair. My bad. Not to mention, you know, Guillaume and... where is it? Afon? No, it's not called Afon. It's Rainfarn. Fucking Rainfarn. I forgot Rainfarn. There's like 20 tall punish in your faction. Jesus. No, Stefan's not a tall punish. Stefan just does 8 damage. I only counted things that get the more value, the taller your units are. No problem. Hey, it's not about winning or losing, Blez, okay? I'm just saying, the specific things that you said are incorrect, and I'm trying to help you understand why. Now, if you think Nilfgaard is bad, I would say that my theory would be that you might not be a top-end player, because even in the top 500, they are the most played faction, right? I'm not saying play rate equals strength, but they have the third highest win rate in the top 500. But when I go to top 100, look at that. They have an even higher play rate amongst the top 100, even higher win rate amongst the top 100. they have the second highest instead of third. And they are in almost everyone's, like, this is the portion of players that have Nilfgaard as one of their top 4. It's basically more people have NG in their top 4 MMRs than any other faction by a mile. 21% to 17, 17, 16, 16. And then Syndicate over here at 11. So what? What exactly is the problem with Nilfgaard? Oh, I know. There's a lot of meme and cheese decks in Nilfgaard, so that when I go look at the top 2,500, holy shit, their win rate takes a fucking nosedive. Monsters and scoia'tael. The two factions you said have strong endgame point slam. So you know what I would say to that argument? It's a skill issue, mate. Lower skilled players think monsters and ST are strong. But if you're struggling with Nilfgaard, the answer isn't to like buff Slave Driver and Sergeant. It's to get better at the game. Playing Nilfgaard well requires that you understand every other faction. So in that sense, it has a different type of skill required. It has a higher skill cap. Okay. And I think we're going to end this video there on these stats. I don't want anyone to cry about, oh, you're over-nerfing Nilfgaard. And because it happens, like the reason I'm so good at refuting these arguments is because like literally every single time this comes up, somebody says this. Oh, you have insert number here, nerfs for insert faction here. Why do you hate insert faction here? And now they're going to be shit. And it's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. And no, they're not. They're not shit. All I care about is how much fun we get to have when playing the game. All of my votes prioritize that. I'm not saying I'm always right, but that's my goal. That's it. More. Okay, let me end the video here. Please like and subscribe. And if you need a screen image of this, just go to my channel, type ! Council. We always have our best recommendations there. Cheers.